Hi folks, Tim here. Welcome back to From 8 to 38, the Chronicles of a Young Entrepreneur. In this episode, I want to talk a little bit about machinery, and I'm going to expand on that a bit more, but particularly machinery that you buy and kind of how to figure out whether it's worth it or not. So we stopped the 8 to 38 series for a while, but this became relevant the other day because somebody mentioned to me, boy, I bet you're glad that you bought that little backhoe at the auction last year. Short answer is yes, I absolutely love this little backhoe. But what I want to do is when you're doing your accounting and you're trying to do some research and figure out whether or not buying another machine is the right step for you, I think there's a really easy trap to fall into, and that is if we buy this machine, we can make X with it. Now, you need to do your math right when you're looking at it that way. So as always, I'm going to use round numbers. It's so much easier, and they are somewhat realistic. So let's say that we value our regular handwork at $50 an hour, and we value our machine work at $100 an hour for something small like that. Again, the prices are not necessarily real, but it really gives a much easier way to figure out how to do the math right. And across the country, there are so many different values on hourly rate. So that's why I use the 50 and 100. I think it's going to be a good, easy way to go. Now, I usually work 10-hour days. So if I value my rate at $50 an hour, that's $500 a day. If I value the machine rate at $1,000 an hour, that's $1,000 a day. So what I don't want to have happen is somebody say, well, if I only need to make X with this machine to make it worthwhile, then I can afford it. So let's dive into those numbers a little bit. Again, we want to start with that base rate of $50 an hour. So if I'm already able to bill $50 an hour for, let's say, weeding a garden or mulching, pruning, things like that, I don't need any specialized tools for that. I haven't purchased anything special. Really, one of the biggest money makers in the landscape world could be weeding and mulching and pruning because you have almost no overhead. So if we're doing a job like that, I can call a local company and say, hey, I need 10 yards of mulch delivered to this address. They'll deliver it. We can do all the handwork from there. So I don't need a truck to haul it, a trailer to haul it, anything like that. We can call that company, have 10 yards of mulch delivered, and put it out. And what tools do we need? Well, we need a couple shovels, a rake, a couple buckets maybe, and a wheelbarrow or two. So to do that job, we really only need about $500 worth of tools. So that's where these numbers begin to get a little bit tricky. So I can charge $50 an hour for this type of work and bill $500 a day per person on a job like that with very, very minimal amount of overhead. So if we're billing $500 a day and we have $500 invested into the total machinery, let's call it that, the total tools to do this job, that means in one day we've been able to recuperate our entire investment in tools, hand tools, and from that day forward, everything else is essentially profit. So that's something to think about. Don't be afraid to do that handwork. If you are a small business and you started out like I did, that's exactly how you started out. It was a rake, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow. So that's how we started out. I'm definitely not afraid of getting my hands dirty and doing that again. And we've got Owen and Bradley both helping us doing it now. So mulching is a really great way for us to make money early in the year before we start mowing lawns. But what we're really here to talk about today is machinery. So we ended up buying last year at the auction a Massey Ferguson, a small Massey. You've all seen my big 2850, and this one I think is a 1723. So it's a smaller horsepower, it's got a front end loader and a very small backhoe. Now, you've seen the video where Glenn has that small tractor and he's doing holes for us, putting trees in, things like that. And we said, you know what? It would make a lot of sense if we could get in one of these machines reasonably enough to be able to purchase one, have it in our arsenal of tools. And that's exactly what we did. It went for, I think we paid $7,500 at the auction for it last year, which to me was a smoking deal. Some of the paint's worn off. It's got a dent in the hood already. So those things, those wear item things, that's already happened. It's already done its depreciation. So, you know, those machines go, I think, for $22,000 or so, in that range. So it has already depreciated 65%, somewhere in that range. So at $7,500, we said, well, we should be able to get enough jobs to make this happen. Now, again, this is where this trickier math comes in. It's really easy to say, boy, if I do 7.5 days at $1,000 a day, this tractor will pay for itself. Well, that's not entirely true. And the reason why is what we had just talked about. My time, or our employees' time, is worth $500 a day, $50 an hour. So that being said, it's not 7.5 days to make that money back. It's actually 15 days to make that money back. Now, this is really not the best argument for it because that tractor, we got a great deal on it. But just something to be aware of when you're doing all these numbers. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Things like that. Sit down, actually do the math behind whether this machine is going to make you money. And, you know, a machine like that, well, the tools that we talked about earlier, they can fit in a minivan or a Toyota Tacoma, something like that. When you start pulling machinery around, then you need a truck, you need a trailer. That means registration and insurance, and more money is invested. For us, it didn't really matter because we've already got that investment made. But when you're just starting out, really, really think about the cost involved and do those numbers accurately. The only person you are going to hurt if you do those numbers wrong is you in the long run. So that's just something to keep in mind. Just a real quick video on it, but I wanted to update that a little bit. It was something that, again, just came up a couple days ago. And what I have done is I kind of wanted to see whether this machine would actually make us money. And the answer is yes, it has. And I've been running my numbers like that where, okay, 500 versus 1,000, that means if I bill $1,000 for a full day with that machine, then I can only count half of it towards the actual profit, let's say, that machine is turning for us. And I actually only count 40% of it because it does have wear and tear items. It takes grease and oil and tires and things like that. So I only count 40%. But when you're doing this initial thought of purchasing a machine, when you're doing those numbers, again, realistic numbers is what's going to keep you on the path to a real successful business. So as always, thank you for watching Elmendorf Acres, and in particular our little series here from 8 to 38. We've really enjoyed doing these. If you have any ideas for a future video, please use our email address, elmendorfacres@gmail.com. Thank you. Have a great day.